When was the last time you heard anyone talk about American sport bikes with genuine excitement? Almost never. There was a time when Buell Motorcycle Company represented the future of American performance engineering. Eric Buell's revolutionary designs challenged every assumption about what motorcycles could be. Liquid-cooled engines mounted as stressed members, fuel stored in the frame, brakes that redefined stopping power. For years, Buell felt like America's answer to Ducati and Aprilia. The innovation was real, and the company rode it all the way to $500 million in development investment. But momentum only lasts if corporate priorities do not shift. Harley-Davidson's cruiser obsession took over, engineering budgets disappeared, and market opportunities vanished. The name survived briefly, but the revolutionary spirit died. So today's question is simple. How did America's most innovative motorcycle company rise this fast? And what pushed corporate politics to destroy a $500 million innovation legacy? To truly understand Buell's destruction, we need to understand what American motorcycle manufacturing looked like in the 1980s. It was essentially a one-company show. Harley-Davidson completely dominated with cruisers and touring bikes, those iconic chrome-heavy machines built for highway cruising and attitude, not necessarily performance. Meanwhile, sport bikes were absolutely exploding globally. The Japanese manufacturers, Honda, Yamaha, Kawasaki, and Suzuki, had established total control over this market. Their machines were lightweight, technologically advanced, and offered performance that American motorcycles could not touch. European manufacturers like Ducati were carving out premium niches with exotic designs and racing pedigrees. American performance motorcycles, they barely existed. If you wanted a sport bike in America, you bought Japanese. If you wanted American, you bought a cruiser. These were the rules of the motorcycle world, and they seemed unbreakable. The global motorcycle market had reached over $30 billion by the early 1990s, and sport bikes represented the fastest-growing segment, a segment where America was completely absent. It was into this environment that Eric Buell saw an opportunity. He recognized something the big manufacturers had missed. There was space for American engineering innovation in sport bikes. There was room for someone to create motorcycles that could compete with foreign manufacturers while maintaining American character. The question was not whether there was a market. The question was whether anyone could successfully challenge the established order. Eric Buell's story did not start in corporate boardrooms with PowerPoint presentations about market opportunities. It started the way many great American innovations do, in a Wisconsin garage with nothing but raw materials, mechanical ingenuity, and a vision that nobody else could quite see yet. 1983 marks the official founding of Buell Motorcycle Company. It launched with just $40,000 and what seemed like an impossible vision: to create American sport bikes using Harley-Davidson engines in innovative chassis designs that could compete with the best from Japan and Europe. This was not just patriotic wishful thinking. Buell had engineering credentials. As a former Harley-Davidson engineer and a competitive racer himself, he understood both the limitations of American motorcycles and what it would take to compete globally. The breakthrough moment came with the RR1000 Battle Twin. This was Buell's first production motorcycle, and it demonstrated exactly what made his approach revolutionary. He took a liquid-cooled Harley-Davidson XR1000 engine and placed it in a completely new type of frame that used the engine itself as a stressed member, essentially making the engine part of the chassis structure. This was not just different for the sake of being different. It created a lighter, more rigid motorcycle with better handling characteristics. Early racing success provided crucial validation. When Buell Motorcycles started winning American Motorcyclist Association races against established Japanese and European competitors, people took notice. Suddenly, this garage operation from Wisconsin was not just an interesting side note. It was legitimately challenging conventional wisdom about American motorcycles. Word spread through motorcycle magazines and racing circuits that an American engineer was creating something genuinely different. The motorcycle world has always valued innovation, and Buell was delivering it in ways that captured imaginations. What had started as a passion project was turning into a potential industry disruptor. The trajectory changed dramatically when Harley-Davidson officially acquired 49% of Buell in 1993. The transformation was immediate and profound. With corporate backing came real production capability, marketing resources, and distribution networks that a small independent manufacturer could never achieve alone. Buell went from a niche curiosity to a legitimate contender seemingly overnight. The timing could not have been better. The 1990s sport bike market was absolutely exploding, and American riders increasingly wanted alternatives to Japanese dominance. Buell offered something unique: sport bikes with American character and engineering that did not just copy established formulas. What made Buell genuinely special was not incremental improvements to existing designs. It was fundamental innovation. The fuel and frame design eliminated the traditional gas tank, improving mass centralization and handling. The perimeter disc brakes offered stopping power that competitors could not match. The engine as chassis concept created structural rigidity while reducing weight. These were not marketing gimmicks. They were engineering innovations so substantial that European manufacturers began studying them closely. Racing victories mounted impressively. Buell Motorcycles dominated the AMA Formula Thunder Series, proving that American engineering could compete at the highest levels when given the chance. Each victory reinforced what Eric Buell had known from the beginning: American sport bikes could succeed with the right approach and commitment. By 1998, Harley-Davidson had increased its ownership to 98% of Buell, signaling even stronger corporate confidence. The company had achieved something most startups never manage: securing corporate backing while maintaining engineering independence. Buell had annual sales exceeding 10,000 units, dedicated production facilities, and a clear identity in the marketplace. Everything indicated that America finally had a sport bike manufacturer that could challenge global competitors. By 2003, however, Buell faced a problem that many innovative companies encounter when they become part of larger corporations. The parent company's priorities began shifting away from their core mission. The first signs were not necessarily dramatic, but they were concerning for anyone paying close attention. Part of this was cultural and structural. Harley-Davidson's dealer network had been built around selling cruisers and touring bikes to a specific type of customer. These dealerships struggled to effectively sell sport bikes to customers who came in looking for traditional Harley products. The sales staff often lacked familiarity with sport bike specifications and selling points. The typical Harley customer and the typical sport bike customer were fundamentally different, and forcing them together created friction rather than synergy. The bigger threat, though, came from internal corporate politics. Some Harley executives began viewing Buell's growing success as potentially damaging to their heritage brand image. What if Buell became too successful? What if younger riders chose Buell sport bikes instead of traditional Harleys? Would that dilute the century-old Harley-Davidson brand identity? These questions were not necessarily asked openly, but they influenced decision-making behind the scenes. The sales numbers revealed the fundamental challenge. While Buell was selling more than 10,000 units annually, impressive for a relatively new manufacturer, Harley-Davidson was selling more than 300,000 traditional motorcycles. From a pure business perspective, Buell represented a small fraction of overall operations. When resources were allocated, this reality inevitably influenced decisions. Harley tried supporting Buell with limited marketing budgets and dealer training, but the commitment was never total. Buell needed either complete integration into Harley-Davidson's strategic vision or the freedom to operate independently. Instead, it existed in a middle ground that ultimately served neither Buell's innovation needs nor Harley-Davidson's traditional business model. Buell's leadership understood the problem clearly. They needed either full corporate commitment or complete independence to compete effectively in the global sport bike market. The question was which path Harley-Davidson would choose. The answer would test whether true innovation could survive inside a heritage-focused corporation with different core values. In 2008, the global financial crisis provided convenient cover for corporate restructuring decisions that had actually been brewing for years. As motorcycle sales declined across all segments, Harley-Davidson faced difficult choices about resource allocation. Would they double down on innovation and diversification, or retreat to their core business? Harley's strategy became increasingly clear: focus resources on core cruiser and touring markets, while eliminating what executives viewed as distracting sport bike development. The logic seemed sound from a traditional business perspective. The idea was to concentrate on profitable, established markets, rather than chase competitive sport bike segments where Japanese and European manufacturers had decades of experience. Eric Buell recognized what was happening and pushed for independence, offering to buy back the company he had founded. This would have allowed Buell to seek other investment while continuing American sport bike development. Harley's response revealed their true priorities. They preferred elimination over potential competition, even if that competition came from a brand they no longer wanted. The decision process happened largely behind closed doors, but motorcycle industry insiders reported heated debates between those who saw Buell as the future of American motorcycling and those who viewed it as a distraction from Harley's heritage business. In the end, the traditionalists won. The decision was not just about finances, it was about corporate identity and the unwillingness to support innovation that did not fit established patterns. On October 15, 2009, Harley-Davidson announced the immediate cessation of Buell operations and the elimination of all sport bike development. The announcement came with clinical corporate language about focusing on the Harley-Davidson brand, but the impact was devastating. 180 employees lost their jobs. $500 million in development investment was essentially abandoned. America's only remaining sport bike manufacturer disappeared overnight. Eric Buell's public response captured the devastation in measured terms. He said, "This is not what we wanted, but we understand Harley's decision to focus on their core business." Behind the diplomatic language was the reality of watching a life's work dismantled by corporate decision-making that valued quarterly results over long-term innovation. The motorcycle industry reacted with shock and disappointment. The American Motorcyclists Association released a statement calling it a tremendous loss for American innovation in motorcycling. Motorcycle journalists who had followed Buell's development for decades wrote editorials questioning whether corporate ownership could ever support true engineering innovation. Within months, European manufacturers like Ducati and Aprilia gained additional market share as American sport bike options disappeared completely. The space that Buell had carved out, American performance motorcycles with innovative engineering, was abandoned, leaving customers with no domestic alternatives. Over the next year, the consequences of Harley's decision became increasingly clear and painful. Remaining Buell inventory was liquidated at massive discounts, undermining the brand's value. Dealers who had invested in tools, training, and marketing tied to Buell found themselves with stranded assets and no future support. Customers who had purchased Buell motorcycles now owned orphaned products from a discontinued manufacturer. Eric Buell attempted a resurrection with Eric Buell Racing, known as EBR, focusing on high-end racing motorcycles. EBR showed flashes of the same innovative spirit, but without corporate backing, scaling proved impossible. The company faced the massive challenge of competing against established manufacturers with none of the resources they possessed. After several promising starts and concerning setbacks, EBR filed for bankruptcy in 2017, ending any hope of American sport bike manufacturing revival under the Buell name. Meanwhile, Harley-Davidson's core business faced its own mounting challenges. The very reason they had cited for eliminating Buell, focusing on their traditional market, proved insufficient as demographic shifts accelerated. Younger riders increasingly chose other brands or avoided motorcycling altogether. The average age of Harley owners continued climbing, indicating a failure to connect with new generations of riders. The irony was not lost on industry observers. Harley had eliminated their division most capable of attracting younger riders just as their core customer base began aging out of active riding. By 2017, Harley-Davidson's global sales had declined for several consecutive years, raising questions about whether eliminating Buell had solved any problems or merely postponed addressing fundamental market changes. What exactly went wrong? When we analyze the collapse of Buell, it comes down to three critical mistakes that deserve closer examination. Mistakes that apply to innovation management far beyond the motorcycle industry. First, Harley treated Buell as a side project rather than a strategic necessity. Harley never fully committed the resources needed for Buell to compete effectively against established sport bike manufacturers. Innovation requires consistent investment, technical resources, and marketing support, not just initial funding. By treating Buell as an interesting experiment rather than a core part of their future, Harley ensured it would never receive what it needed to truly succeed at scale. Second, corporate politics prioritized brand purity over market opportunity. Executives feared Buell's success might confuse Harley's heritage messaging or compete with traditional products. This fundamentally misunderstood how motorcycle markets were evolving. Different product lines appealed to different customers. Buell was not taking customers away from traditional Harleys. It was bringing new riders into the broader corporate family. The obsession with maintaining a single brand identity prevented adaptation to changing market realities. Third, they eliminated rather than spun off. Instead of allowing Buell to be independent and to succeed or fail on its own merits, Harley chose destruction over potential competition. That choice revealed a defensiveness that often characterizes declining companies, the fear that innovations might outshine traditional products. A spin-off would have preserved American motorcycle innovation while allowing Harley to focus on their core products. Instead, they ensured no one could benefit from the technology and expertise that had been developed. Eric Buell later called the decision short-sighted corporate thinking that eliminated American innovation for the sake of quarterly focus. The assessment is difficult to argue with. By 2024, American sport bike manufacturing remains essentially non-existent, while European brands dominate the performance motorcycle market. The vacuum Harley created has been filled by others, with no benefit to American manufacturing or innovation. American sport bike manufacturing remains non-existent, while European brands dominate. That is the real lesson. Innovation dies when corporate comfort zones matter more than market opportunities. You can build revolutionary technology, win races, and prove market demand, but it is meaningless if corporate politics decide you do not fit the brand image. So do you think corporate politics will always kill breakthrough ideas that do not match established identities? Comment your thoughts and subscribe, because next week we expose how another iconic American brand self-destructed.